We've got owners meetings day 2. Lots of insight from not only owners, but GMs, head coaches, what's going on in the NFL, clues to the draft, some players potentially on the move, and rule changes coming to an NFL near you on today's Peacock and Williamson.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look at the NFL on the field and in the front office with elite breakdowns to next-level analysis and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Thanks everybody for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. We love and appreciate all the everydayers out there. If you've not subscribed yet, please pause the podcast right now and subscribe wherever you are watching or listening on YouTube and anywhere you listen to your podcast. If you're new to the podcast, welcome. We're going to hang out together and talk ball, talk NFL football throughout the owners' meetings and free agency and trades and the NFL draft and get you ready for the 2025 NFL season here every day as we do on Peacock and Williamson. Today's episode of P&W brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. And right now at FanDuel, news customers get $200. So all you got to do is win your first $5 bet. If you're a new customer at FanDuel, you get $200 extra in bonus bets at FanDuel.com. So let me get this straight. Everybody goes to this owner's party, this ball, right?
Yeah.
Gets completely hammered. And then they go to vote on the rules the next day, and everyone says, "Oh yeah, you know what? Let's table this discussion and do it later." Well, I'm not. Is that what's going on? Like, come on, can we get an answer on some of these rule changes, Matt?
That's a good point. And I also was making the joke before. The AFC coaches always have their coaches' breakfast the first day, and the NFC coaches get the day after the big party. And I would not be thrilled with that if I was covering the NFC or if I was an NFC coach.
Yeah.
And we were just talking to a bunch of people and we were kind of joking. And it's like, well, over the last couple of years, the longest tenured head coaches, Belichick, Tomlin, Harbaugh, Reed, are all on one side of the ledger. And maybe they carry a little bit more weight and they're sleeping in this morning when everyone else had to do the round table, you know?
How was the party, by the way?
Very cool.
Or was it a martini station this year? Or did you have the margaritas flowing? What was it? What was it like?
So here's how it went. I mean, again, I mentioned yesterday, it's an elaborate and blows you away in terms of the money of the resort / hotel. I don't even know what to call it. It's a hotel, but that's selling it short.
Yeah.
And as has been the case for all of these, the majority of it was supposed to be outside, but we got major Florida storms that actually derailed my Steelers show because we were out in a tent and there was lightning and crazy, so we had to cut that short. So we weren't allowed outside for 90% of the event, which was good and bad. In a way, it condensed all the people into a smaller area. So it was more crowded, and everywhere you turned, you'd like bump in or almost spill a drink on a head coach. I mean, like you saw them at every turn. There were some notables there, not to mention there was all the top media guys that you see on every TV network like crazy. You almost bump into them all the time too. But I'm a big diners, Triple D, diners, drive-ins, and dives. I love that show.
Yeah,
guy was there right off the bat. I mean, he was holding court.
Northern California guy.
Okay, I didn't realize that. Very cool.
You'll see him on the streets of Santa Rosa, California, occasionally.
He was the first non-football person. I was like, oh. And then there were two where I went, oh, Venus Williams. And then I turned the corner and Serena Williams. And that was like, wow. I mean, I'm not a tennis fan, but that's kind of an Ali moment for me. I mean, that's like, oh, there's Magic Johnson. They're like, Serena Williams. I mean, I was like, that is something. And
all-time greats. That's amazing.
All-time greats. Yeah. So that was pretty cool. Couple notes. I mean, not quite to the Venus Serena guy level, but saw our buddy Ross, you know, spent a lot of time with Ross Jackson, you know, I mean, maybe a tier below on the celebrity list, you know, from those guys, but had a lot of fun with Ross.
Do you think Serena was like tapped Venus on the shoulder and was like, hey, was that Ross and Matt from the Locked On Network?
I think that was Ross and Matt. I don't know. I'm afraid to mention it. Maybe they were kind of eyeballing us, so maybe that was the case. And then the drinks were flowing. There wasn't a signature drink, but last year the signature drink was Manhattan, so that was just my mood. So I just said, line me up with Manhattans. My Scotch buddies were very happy with the selection. That's a little more than I can stomach. I'm definitely a bourbon, Irish, any whiskey but Scotch, really.
Gotcha.
And this is going to sound a little creepy, but this was one of the best moves we made all day. Was the way it was set up, as opposed to like a huge room. It was almost like Studio 54. You'd like go to this room, like, oh, I didn't know this was here. Then there's another room, and then there's another room. And the one room was very cool, was designed for all the kids. There was chicken fingers in there, and Kevin O'Connell's in there playing with I assume it was his daughter, and they're giving away football cards, and there's face painting and kid stuff. But it was also the least crowded bar in the whole place.
There was a bar in the kids' room too. Okay.
We stuck in there, like, I mean, it felt like we were hovering a little too long. We're like, we better get out of here. But this bar has no line ever. We're just fighting the kids for Manhattans. It was great.
Oh, that's awesome. I didn't know it was an all ages type of party. Okay.
I don't remember kids there in previous years, but maybe they just had their own wing, and I didn't go to that bar at that point.
I think we're probably upgrading this era of NFL with better fathers.
I think
in the coaching and GM ranks, right? Like, I feel like there's a lot more, and there's always like kids around. But I just feel like people are getting a little smarter with time spent. And I think family's a little bit more important in this era than it was in eras past.
Yeah. A lot of wives and kids and family and owner family and that kind of stuff going on, which was very cool. So it was a very good environment. They do shut us off at 10. And they start to push the riffraff out. I'm sure they don't make Jerry Jones leave, but we start to get pushed out a little after 10, which is plenty because it's a strong 3-hour voyage there.
Yeah, well, after about 9 o'clock, did you start hearing anything interesting once when things were flowing a little bit?
Not really. I mean, I just kind of hung with the Steeler folks, the media that were down from Pittsburgh. Ran into Ross every chance I get, and some other buddies I would just bump into. It was good to see, but I didn't hear a whole lot of scutterbutt. It was a lot of laughing and joking and drinking and eating,
Nice.
Yeah.
There was some beans were spilled the first here at the owners meetings and some candid conversations with different GMs and coaches around the NFL. Maybe we should just do this in draft order. Jimmy Haslam had some interesting things to say, the owner of the Cleveland Browns. And one of the things you brought up before we went on the air today, Matt, was about, first of all, before you start making new decisions, you have to evaluate your old decisions. And essentially he was like, yeah, our bad. We really screwed that one up with Deshaun.
Yeah. I don't have the direct quote in front of me, but I did see it. And it was basically, oh, man, that was a catastrophic move by us. And my initial thought, just reading it, not hearing it, was, this guy's never going to play football for the Browns again. And I wonder if he'll ever play for anyone again, and it really derailed the entire organization. I don't think anybody really feels bad for them.
Yeah, no, not really. To be honest with you, the fact that Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski and everyone still has a job there after that tells me that Haslam's probably pretty heavily involved in it, or else other heads would have rolled with that decision.
Same thought. And I think that he also realized, a lot of owners would be like, yeah, I made the mistake, but I'm still going to fire you anyways because I'm the owner and I'm always right. I think he realized I was wrong, not we were wrong.
Interesting.
And they really were.
The other thing is, okay, well, now what do you do at quarterback? They got the second pick in the NFL draft. Presumably, we're going to have Cam Ward going number 1 to the Tennessee Titans. And he did say that they, quote, won't force a quarterback at number 2 overall. There will be no reaching for quarterbacks. And but that doesn't mean that they won't draft the quarterback, but they won't force it at number 2 overall. Do you think they have a pretty good idea what they want to do at number 2 right now, Matt?
I'm not sure. I bet they do, but I don't. I mean, I used to think Sanders was kind of a foregone conclusion, but just, I mean, even the nature of that defense, the wide 9, Carter and Garrett teamed together is really tantalizing. I don't know how anyone couldn't have a better grade positional value aside on Carter and Hunter, who I adore, than Shador, and that rhymes. But I also know that some people are very high on Shador, and I don't think he'll get past 3.
Could a team sneak in there is my question at number 2. You know, so there's door number 3 there. And would a team, you know what? I think that's a good conversation to have tomorrow with Dame from Locked On NFL Draft, because
I'm going to
Matt
be traveling all day tomorrow.
Traveling back from Palm Beach, and on his way to Pittsburgh, he's going to be unavailable. So I'm going to talk with Damian Parson, co-host of Locked On NFL Draft. We're going to get into some of these conversations at the top. So that'll be tomorrow's episode.
Yeah, I'm psyched to listen to that. He's really good.
Really interesting nuggets here on Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers. Kirk Cousins, what be happening there? Could we see Dallas Goedert, star tight end, on the move potentially? That's the report coming out of the owners' meetings. And, of course, any changes and what has been tabled as far as potential changes for rules in the NFL next. This episode of Peacock and Williamson brought to you by Monarch Money. Have you ever checked your bank account and you wonder, you know what, where did all that money go? Between dining out, online shopping, daily coffee runs, entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place. So you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When you start using Monarch, you realize just how much you're spending on food delivery and other things. And now you budget smarter and save more. Managing money with your partner is huge, and it's smoother than ever with Monarch Money. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. We'll talk about the rules here in a second. Let's get to the interesting player nuggets here. And speaking of owners, Mr. Rooney was speaking, and he kind of let the cat out of the bag a little bit. I don't know what the holdup is necessarily. Maybe you have some insight, but even the owner of the Steelers is like, yeah, okay, we're probably going to have Aaron Rodgers, but he didn't say we have Aaron Rodgers. So what's going on there?
Yeah, and I'll be very honest. Today's a little weird because I have not left my hotel room yet. As soon as we are done recording, I'll run over to Breakers and hang with all the Steeler people, all the media people. We'll be on the air. I'll get lunch, etc. So they spoke to Mr. Rooney already today, and I'm just getting secondhand information. I haven't texted my buds or anything. But I will say all 3 of the top people in the organization, Tomlin, Khan, Rooney, have all spoken down here. The first 2 were like, acknowledge the Rodgers situation. But then the boss is kind of like, yeah, I kind of think it's going to be a foregone conclusion. And I mentioned I didn't think there was any rumblings last night, but some of the Steeler folks in the media and in the know kind of thought, and we don't talk about this enough, but it's definitely true, that the NFL loves information and news to get scattered. Like right now, there's enough to talk about, just owners' meetings. But maybe by Friday, things have cooled down, and why don't you release it then, Steelers? You know, something like that.
So the official quote from Art Rooney that's pointing in the direction, end quote, that Aaron Rodgers could be signing with the Steelers. There's positive signs that it could be happening, but he added that the team would not wait, quote, forever for Rodgers to make his final decision. So it's in Rodgers' court is what's happening right now.
If he was thrown with DK Metcalf 2 or 3 days ago and he was in Pittsburgh last Friday, I'm just operating under the assumption that he's going to be the Steelers' opening day quarterback.
He does the tryout. Maybe he's like, hey, can DK run the routes I want? Hey, DK, run this one.
Right.
Like,
like DK good enough for me? Yeah.
Yeah.
I noticed George Pickens didn't get the invite.
Yeah, I know. Very interesting there. What do you think about the Kirk Cousins situation? So Kirk Cousins essentially is like going to wait until basically the end of the first round, not even the end of the draft. So he doesn't get sniped again like he did last year after signing with the Atlanta Falcons with a first round quarterback and then decide where he wants to go. Is this some combination of the Browns and you potentially go Abdul Carter. And then after the first round, you're like, see, I told you we weren't going to draft the quarterback. Now we can go make a Kirk Cousins move.
My educated guess, and I mentioned there was an NFC roundtable this morning too, is I think Raheem Morris said, well, we don't expect them at voluntary OTAs. And makes me wonder, do they expect them at any of the, mini camp? Is that the next one's going to pop up? And then we don't expect them here. I don't know. My educated guess is he won't ever suit up for Atlanta again. I know there was just a bonus last week or something along those lines. But I'll be frank, I don't think they're a particularly well-run organization. They probably should have moved on from him before that, but not if he's not going to waive his no-trade clause. They could have cut him, not give him the bonus. The bonus wasn't crazy high, and their owner can afford it. That's easy for me to say, but he's one of the wealthiest owners out there. And I think they'd love to get a pick out of him. But I think it's just bad for Penix. Not that Cousins is a bad guy. I just don't think you want that expensive of a backup. It's just a weird dynamic. And again, my educated guess is if for some reason Rodgers doesn't end up in Pittsburgh, Cousins will on draft day or after the first round of the draft. And otherwise, I think he's likely to be a Brown if Sanders isn't.
It's all starting to come together. I think that makes 100% perfect sense as we sit here on April 1st. Happy draft month, by the way, to you, Matt, and everybody out there listening. I hope you didn't get duped by some fake April Fool's trades. Not a big April Fool's guy myself.
Oh,
Matt,
it is April Fool's Day, yeah.
I don't know if it's something that that you celebrate every year. It's one of the
I forgot all about it till now.
It exists, yeah. But Dallas Goedert, potentially on the move.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that one?
I think the Eagles are getting a little tight against it, and I think that Calcaterra is somebody they've seen that they can win with. It's a really good tight end draft. I think this is kind of one of those situations where it's not that we dislike you, Dallas, but we don't want to be a year too late, and we think we can replenish that as it is now. I adore the Eagles organization, and they're set up really, really well. But I do urge people to go to overthecap.com and look at their dead money in future years. It's insane. I mean, it's insanely high for Hurts and A.J. Brown. And I mean, even guys like Lane Johnson that aren't going to be there. I mean, they have so much dead money in 28, 29 that they might just be kind of doing some bookkeeping here of, hey, if we can turn him into a third round pick and draft a guy in the second round, this might be the time to do it,
Yeah, and I believe it was Mike Garafolo's that reported that that Dallas Goedert could be on the trade block, which is sometimes a precursor to this player is going to get cut as well if they're an expensive player. He's dealt with a lot of injuries and been nicked up and nothing too major.
Right.
But if you're the Eagles, you're thinking, okay, we have a lot of people we're paying a lot of money to. Is Dallas Goedert the most integral part of what
exactly?
We do? And
we don't want to move on from our receivers. We just gave Saquon money. We are always going to be about linemen, and the other guys hurts. What's left on offense to move?
And there's a lot of teams that would probably love to have someone like Dallas Goedert to add to their team too. So is this a trade? Is this going to be a player that ends up getting cut? We'll see. Maybe it's someone that, but the Eagles have spent the most cash of any team in the NFL because they've been able to move the stuff around on the books. They've paid a lot of guys. They're one of the few teams that's paid a quarterback and 2 wide receivers. How long can they keep doing that?
Tight,
There's rumors about, potentially A.J. Brown could be the next guy that's on the move. With his big,
maybe this is instead of Brown, buys us another year or keep it Brown,
Brown next year or something like that. So it's an interesting team because they do have to do something with their financials. We kind of saw the 49ers start to do that.
Exactly.
We were the number 2 team maybe in cash spending and started doing a lot of void year stuff. And then, okay, we got to pay our quarterback now. And that's all of a sudden, well, this is going to be our take our medicine year. Could that year be coming sometime soon for the Eagles? It's a lot easier to do after you win a Super Bowl, by the way, than if you 100%. Don't win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, it's have too many good players. Thus, you won the Super Bowl. And the team that I heard, but I mean, it was just reading it somewhere, is Kansas City's interested. That would be super intriguing to me.
They drafted a tight end. They got Travis Kelce.
Mm-hmm.
Just go all tight ends all the time for the Kansas City Chiefs.
It hasn't worked too bad in the past.
Tight ends is, to be honest with you, I would love a Dallas Goedert if I'm an offense
on any team,
a football team. The tight end money is the best money you can spend right now in the NFL. They impact the run game, the impact especially if they're a good blocker and receiver, they impact the passing game. They're a matchup nightmare, and they make half of what the top wide receivers make.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many teams that don't need them, but I feel like every team should be interested.
And injuries aside, they tend to,
They last long.
injuries, they last longer than wide receivers in a lot of positions in the NFL as well. A lot of savvy involved, a lot of smart guys, a lot of guys that end up coaching later too that are tight ends because you have to know so much. Love me some tight ends. Best money you can spend right now in the NFL. So
100%.
Next,
I'm a Goedert fan.
Let's talk tush push. Let's talk kickoffs, rules changes, and non-changes in the NFL. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. March Madness is here, and it's actually it's April Madness now. It's getting down to the end of the college hoops tournament, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on all the action like never before. And right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories. Who's your favorite underdog that's left in the tournament? Not a lot of underdogs left. And even who's cutting down the nets. The FanDuel app, super easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around. If the college tournament's not your thing, as I mentioned before, it's NFL draft month, so get in on the NFL draft props. There's tons of ways to bet on the NFL, even throughout the offseason. Major League Baseball, NHL, NBA, all of it you can find at FanDuel. So visit FanDuel.com or download the app and get in on all the college hoops action, college hoops, all the sports. You can find all the action all tournament long at FanDuel.com. We haven't had the tush push conversation because we were waiting for them to vote on it, and then we would give our opinions on it. And then guess what? They say, we're not going to vote on it. They got 20, I think 20 teams. Like, what do you think, guys? And they're like, let's revisit it. We want to go back. And it's been, so one thing that I didn't realize, because this has been one of my things with the tush push, is like, hasn't it always been illegal that you couldn't push a guy from behind? And apparently it changed at some point, and I didn't remember it changed. That changed in 2004. It was 20 years ago.
It was like super quiet. I
had no idea that became illegal. That's why I was always confused by the tush push, but clearly it had been legal. I just didn't know when. So I was like, did it just happen right before the tush push? And so that's why my team started doing that. But apparently it's been legal to push a guy since 2004. So they wanted to go back and review that and what has changed and what it looked like, I guess. I don't know. I think they were just hungover from that party. That's my theory on the whole thing with the tush push. What do you think about the tush push? Where would your vote go?
A couple things. But the change back in 2004 is kind of like a tree falls in the woods and nobody heard it. Like, I just never knew that went away. There was one interesting thing that sitting next to Mike Tomlin when he was interviewed that stuck with me about the tush push, and he's on the rules committee, and I'm sure other coaches brought it up too. And I forget what number he said. I want to say it's 170, that there's only been 170 tush push plays ever snapped at the NFL level. And he basically said, compared to all the other rule changes we make, this is just a tiny sample size. There's not much to go off of. Usually it's 3 years of hip drop tackles, or, you know what I mean? All the different things that they tried to lobby out and then eventually do. Okay, we have enough evidence. And that's something I've kind of been saying too, is I think it's going to end up being a dangerous play, because maybe Jalen Hurts, it isn't because he's so strong, etc. And I don't want any quarterback to get hurt. It just seems like I'm going into this mass of humanity that's trying to knock my block off, and someone's pushing me from behind, and I don't really have control of my body. I just think there's a lot of room for injuries, but we haven't had any. Again, not that I'm rooting for any. I think it's a kind of unwatchable play. The fan in me doesn't enjoy it. And I'm sure if I was an Eagles supporter, I'd be like, well, learn to stop it, Mm-hmm. And I do remember Tomlin said something like that too. He said something like, we don't want to penalize teams that come up with creativity that, if you came up with the West Coast offense first, we're not saying, well, you can't run the West Coast offense. You know what I mean? Like, we want to reward creative, good play designers.
Right.
So I think it is a dilemma.
Yeah, it does seem like something that has opportunity for some bigger injuries, but that hasn't been the case. So you can't make that argument, and you can't really vote on it based on that, in my opinion. But I think you nailed it.
Like the Chiefs bringing a tight end to do it. Like some of the teams aren't like, I'm not letting Lamar Jackson do it. Mark Andrews, you can do it. But
right, exactly. there is an injury, I don't want my quarterback involved.
Right.
And so the Eagles are obviously great at it. Jason Kelce was probably part of it. Will they get a little bit worse at it? I don't know what the numbers looked like last year, but
I think they're still pretty good.
There is obviously they have a quarterback who's very strong and very good at it too. The argument of, so there's two things. One that you mentioned, it's not a fun play to watch.
No, I don't like it as a fan
because I don't want to see more of it. I don't want to. It's not fun football, so that's not why you tune into a game to watch any kind of tush pushes.
No.
And the whole learn how to stop it. I mean, every rule change ever. It's like, we don't want wide receivers defenseless getting crowned in the side of the helmet by somebody else's helmet. Well, don't
like the behind the wall, not your block off stuff,
right. And so the argument is, watch where you're going. Don't go in the middle of the field. You can have that argument to any rule change that's ever happened in the history. So it's just like, come on. So that's not a good enough argument either.
Learn to hit a spitball.
Right. Learn to hit you don't like steroids? Well, take
your own. Right. Yeah. You don't like Vaseline on the ball? Well, you should learn how to hit it.
It's not fun to watch. But there's not fun to watch. There's not a lot of arguments to vote against it, so I don't think it'll get pushed out.
There is one thing, and it's actually more of a going forward on fourth, not a rule change, but it is important if you're the play caller. Like 3rd and 6 is a rundown for the Eagles because all I have to do is get to 3rd and 2, and I'm basically going to convert.
Yes.
If like Washington went for it like crazy, Detroit went for it like crazy. Just being a play caller, knowing that we're going for it on 4th changes the way you handle 2nd down and 3rd down, let alone if you have that in your back pocket where I don't have to get 10 yards on 4 downs. I really only have to get 8 on 3 because I basically am a 90% conversion rate,
Last thing on the tush push, I do think, learn how to stop it then. Okay, well, what are teams going to start doing? That could potentially start to be the dangerous thing. Are we going to get more just
wild? And then we saw that Washington nonsense at the goal line where they're jumping and then they got to warn them that, we're just going to award them a touchdown. Like, that's the last thing we want is that stuff.
Right. Yeah. What has changed? Can you talk about the new kickoff rules and what we're even doing? I barely even understand what the last kickoff change rules were right now.
So the way I gather it, and I think this is good, and we can end the show on it because I think it's a good move, is in the dynamic kickoff, which is a stupid name. It used to be you blast it out of the end zone and they take it out to the 30. Well, the only change from what I gather is instead of it being the 30 on a touchback, it's the 35. Thus, we should get more kickoffs. It's just more of a penalty for the big-footed kicker, and therefore we're going to try to get this thing to land in the landing zone more. And
more action.
I do know we had far fewer concussions and injuries as a whole on kickoffs last year compared to previous years. Again, small sample size. Mm-hmm. We had a higher percentage of kickoff returns last year than we have in the last 10 years or so. But now they want more. We want the kickoffs to matter. And frankly, I mean, booting it, I don't think I think that's enough of a penalty for me to say, I'm not going to kick it out of the end zone unless I have a big lead. Because if I'm the offense, I get the ball at the 35. With as good as kickers are now, I basically just need like 2 first downs before I'm in field goal range.
And essentially this change to the 35-yard line is confirmation that the change they made last year was good and that the league likes it.
Yeah. Let's take it a step further.
Because didn't they hedge last year? Because it was supposed to be the 35-yard line. And they said, no, let's make it the 30 because they didn't want as much of a penalty.
That I'm not sure. Like 1 year ago at the owners' meeting.
I could have swore originally it was supposed to be the 35 and they kind of hedged on it and they didn't want it to go all the way out to the 35. And then now they've seen it and they're like, yeah, you know what? The original proposal was actually right. We're going to take it out to the 35.
That does ring a bell. I didn't remember that. But I think all in all, it was a successful step 1 of the dynamic kickoff. Let's take it one more step further, Okay. I mean, I'm open to that. More kickoffs, the better.
Let us know what you think. What's the most interesting thing coming out of the owners' meetings? What do you think about the rule changes, non-changes, tabled rule voting? And you can always find us on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcast. Please subscribe. Check out Locked On NFL Draft, one of the other 200 podcasts here on the network for your second listen. Your team is covered no matter the sport. And Matt and I will be back Thursday. I'll be back with Damian Parson of Locked On NFL Draft on tomorrow's episode of Peacock and Williamson.